Hello and welcome to tutorial 219, and in tutorial 219 what we're going to be doing is using the time and sales provider to add a plot on the chart, which is the amount of number of time, the time since the last trade at bid, and also time since the last trade at ask. And you can see this top chart here is showing in the purple, that is the time since the last trade at bid, and the other one in the reddish color is the time since the last trade at ask. So the smaller that bar means that the trade has occurred more recently than if the bar is long. And what I've actually done here is added this functionality to the code that was tutorial 218. In fact, I've modified that a little bit. So what I've done is I've included the plots that were available in tutorial 218 into 219, and those were the trades at bid, trades at ask, and the ratio, which is this item here, which is when we use 1 as an input, and then the largest trade by volume is when we have 1 as an input. So 0 as an input when we want the number of trades at bid or ask and ratio, 1 if we want the largest trade by volume, and then 2 if we want to show the time since the trade. And these plots are available all in the one program, but what I've done in this case, for instance, is applied the program 3 times, and you can see on these other charts I've just got it applied once. What you'll also notice, as was the case for tutorial 218, is the time and sales does have a little bit of historic data, but this program is just using real-time data. And so hence when you refresh the screen, the data you have plotted will disappear, unless you do something like we did back in, I think it was program 81, where we stored the information using Stream Writer and Stream Reader. Anyway, let's have a look at the program, and here we have it, very similar to 218, but I've changed a couple of things, one of which is the input. So before we had something called ratio, and that was a boolean. What we have now is plot type, which uses an integer, and as I just said, 0 is for bid trade, ask trades, and ratio, 1 is the largest trade by volume, and 2 is the time since the last trade at bid and time since the last trade at ask. What I've also done is added a couple of new variables, including 3 date times: a date time bid, date time ask, date time ask bid time, and one called Timespan, and we're going to be using those in a moment. So if we look at the changes in the time and sales provider updated method, what I've added now is something called ask bid time. So that keeps a record of the time every time there's a bid, every time there's an ask, every time there's a trade, and we're going to use that as a proxy of the most up-to-date time. But when we have a trade and the price is equal or less than last bid price, we assume that this is a trade at bid, which might not always be accurate, and we store the date time that has occurred, and we store that in trade time bid. Similarly, if the price is greater or equal to last ask price, then we do everything we did before, but we also now store in trade time ask the date time that has occurred. Okay, that is information. In fact, I just destroyed my program there a little bit. I'm just going to bring that back. That information is then used as we go down. Everything else stays the same. So if you want to see how we set this up, you can look at tutorial 218. But if we go down to the plots now, you'll see that if plot type is 0, then we plot the the bid trades, ask trades and ratio. If plot type is 1, then we plot the largest trade vol. But now we've got plot type 2, and what we do is we calculate the difference between the ask bid time, and that is what I said was the proxy for the time, and the trade time bid, and then that creates a trade span. And find the number of seconds or milliseconds in the trade span, we just use dot total milliseconds. So diff is the time span, which is the difference between these two times, and then we plot that. And then we do exactly the same for the trade time ask, and we plot the total milliseconds. That looks something like this. So on this chart, I've got all three options for the input, including the new one at the top. The others, I've just got the time since the last trade at bid, the last trade at ask. And you might wonder why I've used as a proxy for the up-to-date time this the time of the last ask, bid or trade. Well, the reason for that is that I'm using delayed symbols, and it makes it simpler just to get an idea, an estimate of what the current time is based on the current symbol and the current exchange or local time, even though that value might be off a little bit. And equally, the method of finding if the trade was at bid or ask, there's some potential for misclassification, and the reasons I've included in the program and on the website, and that is the spread is very tight, the market is moving fast, there's price improvement, or the trade occurs inside the spread. So there are some of the reasons. What I've also done is created a tutorial page where you can download the program. And what I've done here is included some potential reasons why this sort of program might be potentially useful or usable within your trading. Okay, well, hopefully that might be useful. I'm going to make the program available for download. Also, of course, if you're interested in learning more about TradeStation Easy Language, then consider joining Markplex Gold Pass, and you can see Gold Pass. You can see information about that right here. So, thank you again very much.